Hello, welcome to getting started on your pre-health track application timeline. Today nope, that's not what I want to do. Hello, welcome to getting started on your pre-health track application timeline. Today we are going to cover the application portal opening dates, a rough timeline, and other application considerations as you get ready for your application cycle. A quick look at general portal opening dates. These are specifically for the 2025-2026 application cycle. However, these are roughly when each year these portals tend to open. So for medicine, usually that's early May, and you're submitting in late May. For DO programs, early May. For dental programs, usually they open in mid-May and you submit in early June. For pharmacy programs, usually this is middle of July. Optometry is end of June. Podiatry is early August. Physical therapy, middle of June. Physician assistant, end of April. And occupational therapy, kind of middle of July. Now, one major thing that our office offers to aid you as you're approaching your application cycle is our intent to apply process. So this would actually begin the fall prior to your application cycle. Some main benefits of this process are, offering an honest review of your current application strength, serving as a vote of confidence from the academic institution, as well as a streamlined letter upload. But I think the biggest benefit this offers is a mock application. So as we just saw, most of these portals are opening, end of your spring semester, early summer. So instead of having to get all of these things together and done when you're also, completing, your spring courses, or maybe you're in, fast-paced summer coursework, right? You're kind of giving yourself, time to think about this earlier and kind of get everything together. So once you submit your application, our faculty committee reviews it, and then we'll write you a letter of support. That committee letter, combined with the letters you submitted as part of your intent to apply application, will then be put together in a nice little PDF packet, so that when you do go to apply, instead of sending out, links to each of your recommenders to again upload a recommendation, you would just be sending one link to our office. We upload that packet and it serves for all your letters of recommendation. Now, requirements for this intent to apply program. If you watched our other workshop videos on academic requirements and clinical hours and all that, you'll see that they are, fairly in line. So you need a minimum of a 3.0 cumulative and science and math GPA. You do not have to have your test scores in hand. You don't have to have taken the test yet, but we do need to see that you're registered for it. Hours for everything else except PA, you need a minimum of 100 hours. For PA, because of the hour requirements, you do need a minimum of 1,000 hours at the time of application. If you have questions about those clinical hour requirements, please go see our workshop on clinical and extracurricular hour requirements. For letters of recommendation, you need a minimum of 2. One has to be academic, one has to be professional, but you can submit up to 8. For transcripts, we need your unofficial transcripts from every undergraduate institution. So if you went here, but you also went to 2 different community colleges, we need 3 unofficial transcripts. They don't need to be official. I'm not going to make you, order and pay for several sets of these, but we do want to see a unique transcript for each institution. And last but not least, there is a $20 fee per program. Now, that does not mean per school. For instance, if you're applying to, 12 medical schools, that's just one $20 fee. But if you're applying to 12 medical schools and one DO school, that would be $40 because we are going to write a different letter for the DO program. So looking at our timeline, considering, using the intent to apply process, intent to apply does open the fall prior to your application cycle. So, we'll take a look at students who are in their 25-26 application cycle. They started their intent to apply application in fall 2024. This is also when they're registering for their, their MCAT, their DAT, their GRE, whatever test it is that you're taking. You're also going to outreach to potential letter writers at this point. You are going, and then in the spring is when you'd submit your intent to apply. This is when you'd be taking, your scores, your tests, your MCAT, your DAT, GRE, OAT, whichever one it is for the path you're on, as well as finalizing personal statements, formally requesting letters, continuing prereqs if you have any, ordering your official transcripts. And also, this is when your PA application opens. Summer 2025, all other applications are open and being submitted in this period of time. You're going to continue prereqs. This is when supplementary applications begin to come out. We're working on those. And this is where I usually recommend starting to practice mock interviews because as you'll see, we'll get to the fall and that's where the bulk of your interviews are going to happen. This is where we recommend to finish your prerequisite coursework. You might still be doing some supplemental applications. You might get, some early admissions towards the very end, like of November, early December, but this is where you'll do most of your interviews. In spring 2026, if they haven't already, this is where students will be graduating. They might have a few more interviews early on, but this is where the bulk of admissions come in. Hopefully you receive an admission, you accept that admission. In the summer 2026 is when you have your orientation, and fall 2026 is where you would matriculate or begin your program. So you can see it's a fairly involved timeline, right? You're starting, up to even 2 years prior to when you want to start your program if you are going through our intent to apply application. Some other things to consider in here, we recommend finishing your prerequisite coursework by fall 2025. Some programs might require you to have your coursework done the spring that you're submitting it. Some might be okay with you extending all the way until the spring that you graduate, right? These are program specific dictations, right? Generally, fall 2025 is where we see that required. But again, make sure you are always, always, always checking with your specific programs related to requirements. Now, a lot of students see this timeline or come up on this timeline and realize for many different reasons, they're just not ready to apply. And so, they decide that they're going to take a gap year. So, a few ways that you might decide to take a gap year based on, why you're deciding to take that gap year. If you've still got some outstanding prerequisites, or maybe you've got, a lower cumulative or science and math GPA, right? We can opt to do either a formal or a DIY post-bac program. If you've got a lot of prerequisites left to do, if you're kind of just starting out on your path as you're graduating, you might want to do a formal one that's going to give you, reliable access to those, have a lot of structured support as you're going through it. But that's going to cost more money, right? If you, either want to save, money, you're okay with kind of creating your own structure and support. Or if you only have like a handful of courses left, you might do what I like to call a DIY post-bac, which is, kind of taking courses at community colleges, even coming back through Open University here and taking a couple courses. But, kind of doing those additional prereqs or additional coursework to strengthen your GPA or to get the coursework you need. Now, if you have, limited clinical experience, you might want to spend this time, doing a really in-depth volunteer program, or, getting a certificate and working as a healthcare paraprofessional, right? As a CNA, as an EMT, as a medical assistant, right? Something that you'll be able to work, right? Earn some money in, but also be getting that really rich clinical experience. Now, let's say you have, a pretty strong GPA, but you have a lower test score, right? Maybe we take that year to really, spend concerted effort doing a test prep course, right? And then planning to do a retake of that course. Now, as you're doing this, you can be, retaking a course and also doing additional coursework, or, retaking your MCAT and also doing clinical experience, right? These aren't like exclusively you can only do one thing, but just some considerations based on why you might take that gap year. And last but not least, academic burnout, right? This is a lot. This is a lot that we're doing over, a 4-year time span. And sometimes we just need a break to rediscover our passions, maybe even earn some money, right? So we're not going in dead broke to one of these programs. Um, but you can see here there is a lot of reasons why you might take a gap year. There's a lot of really effective ways to take a gap year. Over 70% of students or pre-health students in their last application cycles took at least one gap year. So you are definitely not in the minority if you choose to or end up needing to take a gap year. And I think the important thing to keep in mind is, the gap year itself is not inherently bad, right? It's how you spend that gap year, right? How do you keep yourself engaged? How do you continue, showing your commitment for this career pathway and the clinical field? So that covers the general pointers and timeline for your applications. If you have questions about academic requirements or clinical and volunteer hours, please check out the other workshop recordings on the advising page of our website, the same place you found this one. I hope this was helpful and wish you all the best on your pre-health journey.